I have it, you don't have it. Bob has it, Bud has it. Maybe for the,
You're not seen on here.
oh,
I don't know.
getting cozy. Okay. How's that?
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Is Gail coming? You have a quorum. You can check that out.
You're live. You're live.
You are live now?
23rd of February is when you guys approved that.
February 3rd?
23 February 2023.
Sure.
You were there for the, for this hearing on this.
Which one? Oh,
The
the it's
subdivision.
reviewed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. You were, I know. She was there.
So, yes, I didn't have it from you, I'm done, what I say.
This is a subdivision of
You were there for that.
Yeah.
So you can sign it.
I was there as well.
I gotta sign this now?
Yes.
Please, just so I can file it.
My purple pen
Paperwork for,
Yeah.
that I got from the senior expo.
we always put him on this left side so he can write.
See a southpaw?
I like purple, so. yes.
I can only hear on my left ear, so I'll have to speak loud.
I'm
Is that
trying.
your good ear?
Yes,
Oh,
as
okay.
good as it's gonna be.
So you might have to turn around backwards, Bill, just so you can hear me.
Alright.
There you go.
Thank you.
Used to be Mylar, we don't do Mylars anymore, or is it just for certain projects?
They don't do Mylar, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
No,
No,
They,
you just have,
they scan them all into digital. And
you used to have a special pen that would write, you couldn't use blue ink or something, it had to be black ink on a Mylar or something.
I don't even know what my law is, so.
It's
Here.
plastic.
Well, you're young.
We have some in there on the road.
Before your time.
Well, that's, I got ya.
Laminated.
What's that?
It looks like a plastic bag.
Oh, this is all I needed. On that.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I call,
Has everybody signed in?
is everybody signed in? Yes,
Okay.
all four of them. So I declare the meeting open and I ask you all to join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Well, we can go through some preliminary things. First thing is the minutes of the meeting. You all got copies of them, I trust. Maria did a nice job on getting them. And I assume that that's an effective way for you to all receive, you, except for you. You get them from your next door neighbor?
Yeah.
Yeah, either that or I pick them up here.
Okay. So would you please review the minutes of the last meeting, which was April 10th? And I will accept any suggestions, comments, complaints.
Deal. And then you can be on camera. Okay.
You can catch this, Jim. Are there any comments about minutes?
It's not about the minutes. I just want to say, because I'm frequently reviewing the video in order to accurately record minutes. Please, when we're making motions, don't speak over each other. I had a really hard time figuring out who motioned and seconded for the April 10th meeting. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. You got a question?
I'm waiting for a motion.
I think it was a question, I wasn't listening.
I said I'm waiting for a motion.
Yeah. I'll make a motion. Well, we accept the meetings, but I got a question afterwards.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes as written. Any objections? All those in favor?
Who said that?
It's 5-1. 5. Because you're
I'm sorry.
acknowledged, we can't count your vote on this item. You can stay
Oh,
right
okay.
there. Okay.
That's fine, but
So
I can speak,
it will be 5-0.
I can speak on stuff, right?
Yes, you certainly
Okay.
can.
Good, good, good.
Okay, the first on the agenda is something that we've been working on, and I know that it's gonna take us some time. But it's to redo or consider our bylaws. And I have taken some time today to make some suggestions for, and of course I've lost them. But if you go to page 169 in your manual, you'll find the area that deals with the minutes of the meetings. Here it is, and bylaws. And one of the things that we discussed in the past that we could address is the possibility of having, we decided that it would be a good idea to have a meeting every single month so that we weren't allowing things to go long periods of time. And I made the suggestion that we do guarantee 10 meetings per year, which would allow us to have 2 months off if we weren't busy. And we could, pick the time, around Christmas or middle of July or something like that, if we're not busy, rather than come in just to do some routine paperwork.
Okay.
So I suggested that's something that we should talk about and approve or not approve. Yes.
Did you want to have another workshop like the one that we did have on the bylaws?
We can. What I thought I would do is get a few things out tonight.
Yeah, and I'm recording them, so.
Yes,
So what you are suggesting is that we have a meeting every month, a minimum of 10
minimum of 10 out of 12.
guaranteed, and that would affect the bylaw number 1,
Correct.
because we would amend,
Yeah, what I did was I said 1 each month, and then I took out only if there's a business to conduct, and I put in for a minimum of 10 meetings per year.
okay,
So we could have one every year, every month, or we could have some time off.
This allows us time off, right?
I'm sorry?
This allows us time off, but only if there is business to conduct.
Right, but what would happen is, and it has happened in the past, is they might go 2 or 3 months without anything.
So
And some little small permit gets laid aside.
Mhm.
And so in order to keep the planning board doing its job, we felt that it was important to meet every month. Or be willing to meet every month. Okay? The second thing that I found is in number 13 of our list. It says that we will function under Robert's Rules of Orders, and then it said the revised anniversary edition. Well, the one that I bought is the 12th edition, so we would probably change it, or we could just say to Robert's Rules of Order, latest current model, or something like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Robert rules.
But we do have a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, and I didn't bring it tonight. I have too much stuff.
So latest revision,
Yes.
And in number 15, it talks about if we don't have a unanimous vote and we have a split vote, if it's a tie vote, it becomes a rejection on whatever it is that we're voting on. And it doesn't say that in there, but I think we should include some wording in there that tie votes equal a rejection of the matter before us. And now for your homework. Numbers 21, 22, 23, and 24. 21 is conflict of interest, that's page 174. Number 22 is add F, which is on page 174. Number 23 is G on 174. And number 4 is reconsideration, again on 174. And I think for our next meeting, we ought to look at those and see whether we want to include them or not as possible additions to the bylaws. Has anybody come up with any other things that they'd like to see in the bylaws? Yes, ma'am.
Well, we kind of talked about this in the workshop and in the meeting afterwards, where we talked about a code of conduct and attendance, and in what we wrote up, we deferred to whatever the select board came up with regards to attendance and a code of conduct. But, you know, it's May, and they've been talking about this now for, I think, 6 months. So, not that I don't think that they won't come up, do something eventually, but I think that we should have some basic policy with regards to attendance and code of conduct. I mean, I wrote up, but again, I'm deferring to the town. I said attendance is necessary to properly conduct planning board business, and the planning board will implement the attendance policy that the town adopts. But again, the town hasn't adopted anything, so we need to, I personally think we need to move forward with our own attendance policy and then eventually implement the towns. And then for code of conduct, I stated order and decorum are expected of our planning board members. The planning board will implement the code of conduct policy that the town adopts. So.
Well, if we want to take what we've got now and set it aside for the next meeting, I can get in touch with the select people and ask them to give us their input.
Okay.
And we can address these other issues that I'm suggesting. But I wanted you to have time to read through that section that I gave you on 174 and think hard about whether you think they should be included or not.
Can I
Sure.
make a couple of comments?
No, sure, but 174.
On number
It's on one
6,
page, I guess.
you say that we will
Oh,
post
okay.
it in the town office and the Alice Head post office. Wouldn't it be nice to put it on the Alice Head website?
It is.
Oh, it is, but it doesn't say that.
Yeah, it doesn't say that, but it should be.
So we should add that.
We have to add,
Okay.
when we have a public hearing or a public meeting,
Mm-hmm.
we have to do it, I think, in at least one newspaper and 3 locations. And it's the post office, the town hall, and the website.
The website.
And
Yeah,
then
I think we
qualify.
It's
should.
actually 2, just the town hall.
Yeah.
And the library,
Yes.
and then online.
And it's online, but,
Excuse me, in the paper.
yeah.
It doesn't
We should-
have to be online.
But we should do it on the Alice Head website.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we have that as a policy?
Bob, can you repeat what we want to look at on page 174?
174 is conflict of interest. F, G, and reconsideration are those 3 that I think, 4 that we ought to look at.
Okay.
And that's just my opinion.
In number 16, shouldn't we say, have the minutes in advance of? I know we've been doing that. It just says who appear at the subsequent meeting. And that's a lot to have to read your minutes and approve them all at the same time.
Well, Maria's been doing
I
a
know
wonderful
she
job
has.
about
She
getting
has.
to us early, and we should be, you should have read them before you got here, so
No, that's right, but why not have that in our bylaws?
that's fine.
Remember, in advance of the subsequent meeting.
Yep.
And I have another question. Number 20, what is an associate member he designates? Did you mean, alternate is already there. What's an associate member?
An associate member would be somebody like Matt, who is staff, who is, provides us with professional backing and information, but is not allowed to vote.
Shall represent the planning board. Okay, I got it.
Okay, so,
Mhm.
so there are technical expertise.
Mhm.
And he is the only one right now. I guess you would be too, when it comes to doing the electronics. Okay, is there any other questions that you want to deal with on the bylaws for tonight?
It needs to be in the bylaws now, but we had a situation where I think we only had 3 here from meeting, or 4, and 2 of us weren't there for a previous meeting to vote on the minutes. In other words, how do you want to handle if you had to attend the meeting, you had to vote on the minutes? You know what I mean?
Run it by me again?
In other words, we had one night, I think there was only 4 of us here.
Uh-huh.
The 2 of us weren't here for a previous meeting.
Right.
So when we had the minutes, we didn't have a quorum to vote on the minutes because 2 of us weren't here
Correct.
to know what was really said. So
I wish there was only
I
one.
can't remember if we decided to hold it off till the next month and vote on it, or,
The 2 people that were not in attendance at the time of the meeting should not be allowed to vote on the acceptance of the minutes the next month. So the minutes would probably be postponed until the individuals that were there at an active meeting
Yeah.
vote on them. Yes.
I think part of that problem is solved by the fact that we now have a video recording
Mm-hmm.
of the meeting. And so members that are absent can watch the video recording. In fact, I was absent last month and I
Just voted.
did the minutes strictly from watching the video. So,
There is a provision in the ordinances that say that if you are absent at a meeting and you follow the videos and audios and come back up to speed,
Mhm.
you can come back and be part of that discussion if it's been extended. But it also says if you're missing a meeting and we bring in an alternate to handle this particular permit, that the alternate has to stay on that particular permit until it's over. And you have to back off and just wait until it's over. Okay?
I have one more
Yes.
thing, and I'm not sure whether it fits with the bylaws or not, but I was also absent and I did watch the public hearing and the meeting and listened to what Ken Wexler was saying about how things got conditionally approved, and then I don't know whether the code enforcement officer or whomever, that didn't follow through on some issues. I think it should be the responsibility of the planning board, if we conditionally approve something, the way we did the subdivision, and then we leave a couple of things to get done, that we should be reported back to. And that from what he was saying, that wasn't happening.
Well, if you're going into the matrix and it's, the code enforcement officer has to issue that permit, we don't get involved at all. He takes care of that. If it's his planning board, then we do have to follow it all the way through. And eventually, we have to write a list of conditions and say that they're done or not done and prove the
Yeah.
permit.
Because when we approved the subdivision,
Mhm,
there were a couple of things that had to still get done.
mhm.
Now, does that come back to us?
It is supposed to.
Okay, you know, I'm kind of thinking that maybe one of us should be assigned to make sure that that happens on everything that we conditionally approved.
We can do that. You can also put it in Matt's hands and say, go find out what's going on and report back to us. And he comes back and say, yes, you told him to do, put a culvert in there and it's in.
Yeah.
So that's where he becomes our associate.
Right, but I think if somehow it slips, you know, it's a real problem.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And we're gonna not let him slip anymore.
Good.
Okay. Anything else on the bylaws? All right. Now, under new business, we had a conversation with Colin Clark today. He was not able to be here tonight, and because of a family arrangement, he was not going to be able to even come in by Zoom. So we did talk, and it was Matt and I together who had a long conversation with him. And the document that I had for the planning board people, this one, is his comments and the things that he said. And I'm going to ask Matt to come up to the table and have a conversation with me about what we heard and everything, and transmit that information as best we can to the board. Not that we're going to be voting on anything, but the issue that's coming down is that we have now had a public hearing on the shoreland zone ordinance changes. And there are some significant issues that we found out about today that need to be addressed. And I've talked with the chairman of the select board tonight about whether or not we could postpone the approval of it at town meeting, and we're not sure that we can do that legally, because once the mechanism gets started, we got to go through the whole process. What I was proposing is that we back off and make the corrections and get them straightened out, and then move forward, even if it meant a special town meeting with it. But again, I'd like to have Matt come up and give your opinion of some of the things that you heard today.
You want to start? You have specific questions?
Well, I'll get you started. One of the things that we discussed today was the fact that the shoreland zoning regulation requires up to a distance of 250 feet from the shore. And after that, it is not considered shoreland zoning. There were some properties, one of which was the state park, which is complete resource protected. And Colin, in my opinion, didn't think that that was a very good idea.
Correct.
And tell the people what you think.
So my follow-up was I called the Department of State Parks, Bureau of Parks and Public Lands, and the Department of Conservation. And let's see here. The Bureau of Parks has complete jurisdiction control and responsibility for managing all state parks in the state of Maine, except for Baxter State Park, due to it being over 10,000 acres. So our maps might have it in resource protection. We don't have, the town of Owl's Head does not have the ability to put state land in resource protection. It's not in resource protection, it's just on our maps. It's not really, we have no control over those state parks.
So they don't come to us if they want to build
They do
a
not,
picnic table or
nothing.
that's a significant change to what we've had in the past, because that applies to the airport, the lighthouse, the beach, state park,
Birch
and
Point, yeah.
and the one that we share with another town.
Preserve.
The preserve.
I can't remember the
There's three of them
Preserve, but yes.
that we are, I don't know. we
They're
apparently-
state and federally regulated.
Yes.
They're not down in the county or the municipality.
So that was one important thing that we picked up. And the other one was a discussion about resource protection in other areas that are not necessarily resource protected, not wetlands.
Right. So we have a few areas that are forested wetlands that, yes, the municipality can, we have to meet the state minimum, we can go over. Any municipality can. However, there's typically a reason for that. There's a critical habitat, there's a wading bird, there's bluffs, steep slopes over 20%. In the conversation we had today with Colin, there's no legitimate reason that the resource protection of the airport should have ever been or should remain in resource protection.
That's another big bomb. If we were to take the resource protection out of the airport area, it would be just commercial zone, and that's what he feels it ought to be.
Yes. And then he also feels there may be areas that we should check out around town that should be in resource protection due to the habitat or the cliffs, or that we should look into a little closer and identify.
Did you happen to look at the property on Beach Street, Holiday Beach today that was eroded?
Yes,
Is that over 20% slope?
absolutely.
Should that be one that's possibly considered?
That whole area there, yes. But that's all washed out. Yes, absolutely.
So there are some other gaps in the shoreline zone as drafted that included some of those things that we talked about. Were there any others that stood out in your mind?
No, not that I had in my notes. You're gonna address these concerns, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Feel free to ask me if I'm forgetting something.
what I'd like to do is excuse you and ask Larkin to speak about the wetlands in the airport. Thank you.
Larkin Post, 5 Post Lane.
Just for clarification, what's your connection to the maps that have been drawn for the town?
I have drawn all the maps for the town. I have been working for an engineering firm for 20 years. I do maps for a living. I've been a resident of Alstead. I grew up here and moved back here over 20 years ago.
Okay. And has your position been in the past in dealing with the resource protected areas in the airport area and other areas in town? What's your position been about those?
My position, there are 6 areas, 4 in the airport and the transportation museum and 2 other areas in the town that I don't believe should be in resource protection. They may have wetlands on them, but they don't reach to first of all, they don't reach into shoreline zoning, because first of all, you have to have shoreline zoning. There's a certain criteria for an area of the town to be in shoreline zoning. And then from that point on, if it actually qualifies as shoreline zoning, which this ordinance addresses, then there's another criteria on there are a number of criteria that hit trip resource protection. And in my mind, 4 areas in the airport and 2 areas in the town do not trip that. And that would affect, I have to look at my notes. 32 residential lots and 3 commercial lots within the town, if those 6 zones weren't included as resource protection. This is still, as I said, they're still protected if they are wetlands by DEP. They just don't reach the threshold of resource protection.
When you're looking at resource protection as a map drawer and stuff, are there different classifications of resource protection?
There are, resource protection is one classification that is activated by a number of different criteria. Steep slopes, which Matt just talked about, have to be contiguous for over 2 acres. Unstable bluffs comes from a different source of information. Wetlands, great ponds, which we don't have, or rivers, but other towns do. Trip resource protection, and wetlands of greater than 10 acres, not including forested wetlands per definition.
Any questions of the board?
The only one I'd have is, you talking about Holiday Beach possibly being qualifying for resource protection, where the town road is right within 25 feet of that bluff. Would they be allowed to, and even though there's a borderline whether it's town property or private property, to riprap those banking so they don't damage the road?
I'm gonna come up with an answer, or?
Please, I want it on the record.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roger.
So Bill, you're talking on unstable bluff,
Yes.
and you can absolutely repair or stabilize a bluff. Even if it's residential property, if you had, steep slopes in front of your house, through proper permitting, you can absolutely do that. When you're talking resource protection for wetlands of special significance, wading birds, critical habitats, vegetation, probably not. But that being just boulders and sand, yes. Just because it's in resource protection there doesn't mean you can't work there, repair it, maintain it.
I just wondering.
Is that,
On the bluffs, and because most of the coastal bluffs are on property where there's no road, but in this case here, if the homeowners decide not to stabilize that at some point, it's gonna be in the town right away, then we'll have to stabilize it.
correct? Yep, you're right. Good, right?
Caveat to that. In the definitions, there's a proviso that if an area is what they call densely developed, which is any commercial, industrial, or residential area of more than 10 acres that has more than a primary structure per 2 acres. And I'm not exactly sure the area you're talking about, but if you have a house within 2 acres, that brings it out of resource protection and can bring it back to a different zone. So even though you may have a steep slope there, if there's previous houses in that area or buildings and structures, primary structures, not secondary structures, it doesn't qualify for resource protection. It would qualify as a different zoning.
Because there's almost 5 houses, right? They're
Yeah,
all
so
lots
that's
of like you
densely
said,
developed,
200
and
by
there are a
200.
number of areas in South Shore Drive that I believe, don't trip resource protection because of that proviso, and that's on page 51 of the new ordinance. And it's a definition that's been in there previously.
One of the things that I saw in the draft ordinance, which surprised me, and I brought it up to Cole, and they kind of laughed about it a little, is that the draft ordinance in many locations goes into a fair amount of detail about what you can do around rivers and great ponds. And then there's a note caveat that says we don't have any. Well, I don't know that we're gonna buy one or invest in one or anything else. So from a verbiage point of view, is that necessary in this ordinance? We went from somewhere around 50-page ordinance to something like 64 pages. And a good deal of it is discussing something that we have nothing in. So if we were going to petition the selectmen to either rewrite this or amend it, I guess would be a much better way, because there's been a lot of work in it and it's done very well. But there are some things in there that should be corrected. And what I found in listening to all of this, and Larkin has been part of that, is that it happened before. It's been in an ordinance before. It was there in 1951. It was this or that, and we're not going to change it. Well, the only way that we can change it is to go to town meeting and ask the town to change it. And so if we're going to ask the town to change the ordinance now, we should have it, those things that should be changed, and not include stuff that isn't germane to us. And if we have no great ponds, no rivers, there's little use to have it in our ordinance. We're not going to ask for public input right now, okay? Thank you. So again, I'm asking the board, with the evidence and the information that you've been given and what we got out of Colin Clark today, what would you like the planning board to do about this? Sit back and wait until the town meeting and see what happens? It could get approved or not approved, make some modifications, ask the selectmen to review it and postpone it if necessary. Maybe get somebody like Larkin who could help, and we could sit down for a half a day and get the stuff done and rewritten. If we do that, we have to have another public hearing, which is okay. We just have to schedule it. Because we've had a public hearing on this, but we wouldn't on a modified version.
If we don't do it, who does it?
Nobody.
It was done as a town committee. That's how it was done, as a town committee.
Yeah, okay.
What is
Thank
that?
you.
What does that mean, the town committee?
Well, the committee put it together, but it's come before the planning board.
Right.
And we've had the public hearing, and now we've got to decide if we're going to do anything. We don't have to do anything. You sit back and let the town decide. But looking at it and realizing that this is our chance
Yeah.
to make some positive corrections that haven't been made in the past would be an opportunity if you want to do it.
I think we should.
Makes sense.
I think we absolutely should.
I am very willing to listen to a motion. As you know, I don't make motions.
I can't make it.
No.
I make a motion that we put this back to the public hearing with this new information, because I don't feel that you should be putting and voting on stuff that's not pertinent to the town. You're just making it more restrictive on the homeowners and voters, and not,
Shorten your motion up a little.
okay? I make a motion that if we put it back to another public hearing with the new information.
In doing so, are you sending it back to the committee that wrote it, or are we doing that?
That's a good question.
Okay,
We discussed.
it's been moved that we, I'm not just sure how we said that. We send it back to public hearing, but we can't send it to public hearing unless we make a change.
Mhm.
Okay, who's gonna make the change?
Yeah, we are the planning board. Who else is gonna do it?
I think
That's an old.
Well, the option would be send it back to the committee. But they've taken a crack at it, and they've done a real good job. I think another set of eyes is appropriate.
So I make a motion that we have with them.
Okay? Do you want to state the motion for the
Yeah.
record?
Well, what I have so far is Bill made a motion that we send the zoning ordinances back to another public hearing with the new information, and this is where we.
Provided by the planning board?
Right.
Okay.
It's been moved, seconded, okay, now it's open for discussion. Any discussion about that? You're not welcome to say anything.
Oh, no, I think absolutely we should do it. I mean, that's strong planning board role,
That's correct.
yes.
This is just kind of cleaning it up a little bit, probably.
Yes, yeah, 95% of it's done, but
Mhm.
if we took out the part about great ponds and rivers,
Which you don't have, so why
we
even,
shoot 2 or 3 pages off it.
that makes sense, I think.
Any other comments?
How do you, just mechanics, do we want to have a special meeting, a little workshop to do this?
Yeah, we'll have to get the vote taken first,
Okay,
but then we'll have to develop some kind of mechanics for it.
okay, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor? Oops, it's unanimous, 5-0. The planning board is planning to work on the shoreline zoning ordinance and make what corrections you want, and I have already got, thank you, Eleanor, copies for you to review, mark it up any way you want, take out the stuff that's superfluous. There are a couple of comments that Colin made. One of them, it says in section 13A6, it says, notwithstanding any wording to the contrary within the ordinance, this designation of resource protection district is removed from all of Owl's Head with the exception of, and that sounds to me like we've taken all of the resource protection out, but we didn't because of the wording of it. And that was in the previous ordinance and it's in this one. And that's something that we need to do is a little wordsmithing on that. And Colin will be more than happy to help us do that. And we're going to ask him if he can be available at our next meeting, and perhaps we can make that a workshop, and maybe not even our regular scheduled meeting, but a special meeting with him. And work our way through that. Okay? Anything else on that subject?
Bob, do
Yes,
you want
ma'am.
to set a time frame?
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say we've got to make it quick. If we wanted to, if the town will accept a delay or will allow us to get it done, hold a public hearing and be ready for August, we're fine. But the mechanics of it and the legality of it is that this may have to go before the town in August. And perhaps we would stand up and say, hold on for a little while and let us fix it more. Okay? Can we plan on doing some work in
Sure.
late May, early June? If we
Do you
could do that and then hold the hearing before July, early July, we can make the timeline.
Do we want to pick a date to meet
Sure.
based on
You want to
us?
get a hold of Colin and find out when his,
Yes.
when he
Okay.
would be
All right.
available.
Why don't you do
Okay.
that and then get back to me? And I'll broadcast it out.
Could you work during the day if he wanted to come down?
I'm retired, Bob.
You?
I can work whenever I want.
Buddy, are you two guys are both the only workers in here?
Yes.
The rest of us are retired.
Sometime between that time and
That doesn't mean I
Cocktail
don't
hour.
work, I just work on what I want.
Yes.
No,
Okay,
no.
let me get in touch with him tomorrow, tell him what we did,
Okay,
and ask him if he would be willing to come down with it. We sent him a copy of that today, and he's reviewed it, and that's where we got this information. And he will probably have some other ideas, but there would be almost a guarantee that you would get it passed and approved once the town did it, if he's been involved.
Yes.
Because he'll fix some of those things. Okay? All right.
Can I just let you know that there's elections here on June 13th?
June 13th is out.
Is that the
That's
Tuesday?
out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now, the next thing, and I'm not sure whether the board has all received it, but I received a copy of the decision made by the Superior Court. Have you all read that?
Didn't
I do not.
No, there was no
Didn't see
copy.
it, okay.
Yeah.
It should be, we should try and get that kind of stuff into your inbox when we can. But there was a decision by the Superior Court of Knox County that was the plaintiffs were two citizens from Owl's Head who objected to the it's the shoreline ordinance, help me.
The new hangars?
The new hangars, it was the airport issue. And the Superior Court, in very general terms, said that they had standing and the right to do that, and that the appeals board did not hear the case because the timing wasn't right. Therefore, the last board that adjudicated anything was the planning board, and so he remanded it back to the appeals board to take it to the planning board to have it redone. Exactly how much redone we have to do, I don't know. There's part of it that might suggest that we have to do a de novo, which would mean that we have to go right back to the beginning and start all over. But there were also some parts of it that were done and approved by the planning board. And we may be able to piggyback on those and add some and be done with it. However, the county has appealed the decision and has produced documentation that suggests that they did not have standing and that they did miss their deadlines and it should be removed. And so we've been advised by the town attorneys to not do anything. So I guess I'm telling you that we don't have to do this job yet. But I do think that you should read both the case and the rebuttal and be prepared for it. And I will get that. Eleanor, can I give those to you and they can go out? Okay. For your discussion and preparation for it. That's one of them at least. So at this point, we don't have anything to do with it, except to wait until the Superior Court hears the next part of the appeal and sees how that turns out. If, in fact, we have to do it, we're going to ask for a judgment at what level we have to go to do this case. But we are going to be much more specific in our evaluation of it to avoid having this happen again.
Can you resend that, please?
Can I resend it? Yes, we're going to have it. Okay. We're going to ship it out maybe tomorrow.
I'm looking right now.
Okay.
Bob, do you have another copy of the handout today that we were talking about shoreline zoning?
You can have mine. Well, I wrote something on it, but you can have it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought it was-
Yeah, I had 5 printed, and I'm sorry, I should have had 6.
You sure? Or I could ask Eleanor to put it in the package.
I don't have it.
Yeah,
I've got an extra one.
okay,
I'll get it to you.
thank you.
Okay, so there's nothing that we have to do on that yet, except be prepared to to deal with it. And it probably will be, you know, a couple of months, or, you know, how fast the courts work on things. So at this moment, we're not gonna do anything. And for the airport's position and the county's position, I don't know what they can or can't do. When it remanded it back, it may very well have said that they couldn't go forward, that the permits that existed now are not valid. But that's a decision that the court, or that the attorneys are dealing with tonight, as a matter of fact. So I don't know how that's going to come out, but we're not going to ask Matt to put a restraining order or a stop work order on the airport. We're just doing nothing.
Wait and see.
Wait and see. Okay? Now, we have another issue where we have a petition that has been brought to the town for approval at the next town meeting, which would modify the ordinance, one of three and probably three of three ordinances that we have. But I believe it's just one ordinance, and that is the zoning ordinance. And it essentially says, and someone can correct me when I get wrong again, but it essentially says that the petition would allow no activity at all by the planning board for any zone, which would include resource protection, it would include commercial, and so we would have no part to play in particularly the airport area. Now, that creates an interesting problem in that when we deal with petitions, amendments, permits and things like that, we have a set of rules that we go by, and we say, yes, you did this, and no, you can't do that, and lay it out. If you send it to the town for a vote, it's the largest number of people that come that vote one way or another that make the decision. So it's a political decision now, it's not a legal decision. And in a political decision, you can make it whatever you choose. And so what we've got to do now, in a minute, please, in a minute. What we have got to do now, from a legal point of view, is we have to hold another public hearing on that and listen, and then we can listen to all of the discussion from the town. And again, we do nothing. We don't vote, approve, disapprove, or anything else, but listen to it and then pass it on to the town for its consideration. Well, I did find out, because of the shoreline zoning ordinance, that we do have the right to input as a planning board making suggestions, but that's all we can do. We can't do anything else. So what we need to do is to set a date certain for a public hearing on the petition concerning the citizens petition on the airport issue.
I'm not clear what this is.
We can.
Yep,
That's my copy, but
yep,
you can,
we'll get it back to you.
I just sent out emails.
I have a PDF if you want me to send it. You know what you sent me.
I sent it to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the only caveat that we have, I believe, and I may be wrong on this, is that we have to be 7 days before the town meeting. And I think it probably should be 10 or 14 before they have the hearing. But we have to have it in the paper. I'm sorry, we have to have it in the paper and on those three locations.
13 days prior.
Okay, we'll
to a
go with
public
13.
hearing.
I read today it was 7
For a public hearing?
for a public hearing. But at any rate, we can do 14. I'm very happy to do it. 21 is fine. but we need to do that. So if we're going to have a public hearing shortly, we've got to have that time frame.
Isn't this really just asking that the airport be a land use, which it is not now?
It's more than that.
Yeah, it gets fairly complicated, and when we have the public hearing, we're gonna have an awful lot of comments, both from, for and against. It's a more of an emotional,
Yeah,
thing.
I'm just not clear what they're getting at.
It defines the airport, which is not defined currently as a
Right.
non-conforming land use.
Yes,
It
right.
then further, if you look at the little table that's in
Uh-huh.
there where it says no, 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 no,
Right,
okay, it means that they can't pull permits issued by they can't come before the planning board for anything, even if their building burns down. They have to go the route, I clarify this with you, they have to go the route of a town meeting. So how would you feel if you had to, if your garage burned down?
Let's not get into a discussion
So,
of it.
anyway.
okay.
We're supposed to be impartial.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had read this once
It's
before, and
helpful to read the whole ordinance in the ordinance book and then look at
with
that.
this, okay.
So would you be interested in having a public hearing at the same time that we have our next board meeting, which is the second Monday in June?
Yeah, what's that, the 12th?
Is that the day before the election, though?
Yeah.
I can't have it that day. You can't have it that day because downstairs will not be available. We have to set up for elections.
So we could set up a special meeting on some day other than that.
Other than the 12th and the 13th.
You're gonna be set up for the 12 and 13th?
We set everything up the day before, because election starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, so Terry will be in on that Monday. So we
If-
shut down downstairs Sunday and Monday, so that Terry can come in and get everything set up.
Is it gonna be full of chairs?
No.
No,
No,
it's just.
it's election equipment.
Voting booths, okay, so I was thinking we could piggyback on it if it was chairs. Okay.
What
Then
about the following week? You know, we'll reschedule our meeting, our regularly scheduled meeting for
we could,
the, what, 19th is it?
Can't have it the 19th, that's a holiday.
Oh.
The select board is having their meeting on the 20th.
and they meet from 4 to 6.
From 4 on,
Okay, so
depending on what's on the agenda, we can't guarantee they'll be out of here at 6.
if we took the 20th at 6 o'clock
Downstairs,
downstairs, we'd have to move all this,
everything would have to be moved downstairs, and I
Yeah.
just wouldn't have the time to do that.
that's not a good time then. How about the end of May? On I don't care, a Tuesday, doesn't make any difference.
May's Memorial.
Not Memorial Day.
Not the 29th.
What about
I can check the
the first
22nd.
Tuesday of
Within 2
June?
weeks almost.
2 weeks.
Instead of the second Monday, what about
The 6th, June 6th? That's the day after the select board meeting.
will that work for scheduling of the facilities?
I have to get my calendar.
The 6-week work,
I'm getting a calendar.
is it Tuesday?
Which day? The 6th of June?
No, yes.
Does that mean we would have a planning board meeting then also, or it's a special public hearing only?
That's your call. If we have our regular meeting on the 12th, we're gonna have enough going on to have 2 meetings.
Two
We
meetings.
could have them separate.
I think the 12th is the day that, wasn't downstairs, upstairs, when we brought it for planning.
Right.
June 6th would work.
Do we have business that
Would-
has to be
Would the
conducted?
6th work?
Yes,
The 6th would work. Is the planning board okay with that? And we've got time enough to get our announcements out. Okay,
That's me.
I'd like a motion.
Make a motion that we have this is gonna be a workshop or?
Public hearing.
Public hearing on June 6th.
Okay, and it is for that specific issue of the citizens petition.
And time, was it 4 or 5, 6?
Probably 6 o'clock. Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, and then our regular meeting will be scheduled for the 12th. Special meeting,
your planning board meeting. is the
yes,
12th.
6th at 6 PM. Planning board. June 2, June 12. 6 PM. Okay. Is there anything else that the board would like to bring up or discuss tonight? I know you've all been very patient, and some of you may want to say some things. And I would open it up. We don't have to do this. Planning board meetings are like other municipal meetings, and they do not have to, I don't want to say it wrong, they don't have to entertain the audience or grant them permissions to speak. Our select board has done an excellent job doing that every single month, and I know we've got very accustomed to it. But I would be more than happy to allow some people to speak if you have something that you want to say, realizing that we're not voting on anything or anything. We're allowing you an opportunity to voice your opinion. Seeing none,
I would actually like to say something. I'm going to keep it as concise as I possibly can because it's a
thank you.
complex matter and it is about the citizens petition. And I'm going to,
Before you start that, realizing that you're going to be able to speak to not only the planning board, but all of the citizens at that public hearing. Okay.
absolutely, yes. I want to point out that it is not just the no throughout the land use chart. The resource protection in all commercial buildings already prohibits commercial buildings in land use, in resource protection. It already is in there. If you look under commercial buildings, it says no, not planning board, not, you can't just say, we think that it's a good idea and change it. It says no specifically. What the no is for new airports coming in. So that you cannot, with anybody having a commercial designation on their property, you can't have a heliport, you can't have an ultralight takeoff, you can't sit there and have the little motorized yes, the drone zones, etc. So it doesn't affect our airport at all because our airport is truly a non-conforming use. It's not under the chart, but it comes with all sorts of protections to it. And it does indeed, when it is a non-conforming use, you are allowed to do any repairs and even some remodels. I'm not quite sure how they said that in a specific way, but I'm just saying that there's a lot more to it. This is not just a no situation. You were asking, what were they thinking of? What were they trying to do? What we've been trying to do from the beginning is to do two things. have transparency between the airport and the town citizens. And number two, letting the town citizens have some input to the airport. Those are the two things that have consistently come up on every subject, from the comprehensive plan to every bit of I'm trying to remember the name of it, my brain's falling apart here. Whenever you send out, subject matter and you ask a bunch of questions.
Survey.
Thank you. Those are the two things that come up consistently, so those are the two things that were addressed. And we think that we did it well, and in fact, the town attorney did, and I will just do a real quick quote from him. This is from Ben McCall. Finally, while the select board does have the authority to keep a petition warrant article off the warrant if its enactment would be illegal or otherwise contrary to the town's authority, I do not think the petition warrant article here rises to that level. Instead, it simply suggests minor changes to one particular use and importantly creates a release valve for proposed improvements or expansions to the airport that are required by federal law. So that's the town's attorney that has said that about our petition. And so that the understanding could be a little deeper.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am,
Chairman Goffler,
please.
I just wanted to ask you to clarify a couple of words you used because I didn't understand the context.
What's your name?
My name is Pam Moss, I live on Cottage Avenue.
Thank you.
You referred to this initiative as, you used the word political once and emotional the other time, and I'm not sure what role those play in
If you,
what's happened.
if you had an election of any sort or a group of people getting together to vote, this election that's coming up, and you have two decisions, a yes/no vote, who wins? The party that has the most votes, either yes or no. Okay, that's a political decision. It's made strictly by emotion and politics and what side you're on and everything else. When something comes before the planning board, we have a set of conditions that we have to go through. How big your house can be, how tall it can be, where it has to set back, what septic field is. We have to go through all of those things. Completely unemotional, if you will, and I don't mean it quite that way, but we have to do it without prejudice. And we have to review your permit to build your house the same way we do this one. We have to do it that way.
Are you saying that to vote is an emotional thing? Is that where you're going with that?
What I'm saying is
Because
that,
it can be a very rational decision.
yes, it can be,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that it's not rational, but the people going in are not going in with a complete wide open mind and saying, when I get there, I'm gonna hear all the evidence, and then I have to go to the law and see what the law says. And we have to listen to all of the emotional parts of things that you feel strongly about for any one of you, and then say, that's very nice, but it doesn't apply. And I'll give you a good example. What's his name? Kermit came to us.
Shannon, yeah.
The first night that I was chair, I think. And he gave this very emotional speech about the tide and the waves that came in and washed away a section of Holiday Beach Road. And we just talked about it, that very vertical bluff that's eroding away. And we listened to it very carefully and we said, thank you very much. We have no control over that. We have nothing in our ordinances that say that we, the planning board, can do that. So that's a very unemotional thing. It's painful not to be able to help, but it isn't our jurisdiction. However, if you took it to the town and you said, how many of you think we should fix that? Half of them would say yes, and more than that would say no, or vice versa, or whatever it was. And that decision would not be made based on the ordinances. Okay?
Can I just ask one follow-up question then?
Sure.
Well, I'm really questioning characterization of it as an emotional. when I hear you say no, 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 which I've heard you say several times, there's a lot of emotions coming through. So I guess I'm assuming, I think Lynn kind of addressed the issue of there's more detail there.
There's a whole book. Right
Yes, I know that. But it sounds emotional, and I guess I'm assuming that you're being very rational, even though you may have strong feelings about it. It's just a little bit tricky to use the word emotional when it comes to,
When I speak at the select, are you done?
yes, I mean,
Okay, when I speak at the select board meetings, I have every right as a private citizen to express my opinion. You know, it's my First Amendment right. I don't stand up there and speak on behalf of the planning board. I speak on behalf of myself.
I think you're addressing something different than what I was talking about.
But you're talking about emotion and et cetera, and you've heard me only in this forum speak about no, 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 no once. No, it's true.
But I was addressing the chair because he had used it, and it sounds like you're saying that when we come into vote, that we're bringing an emotional self, even if we've done our homework.
If I used the wrong words, I truly apologize. I did not mean it to be insulting in any way. What I was trying to do is to separate the mechanics of being a planning board person and having to agree to this or that, as opposed to somebody who has signed a petition, who's supporting something, who's working in the town and talking about it. We're not allowed to even get together and talk about stuff. If three of us are together, it's a public meeting. So there's a different approach to what it is. And I think the night that I took on this lovely job, I said that we were much like a jury, and our job was to sit and listen to both sides. And I ended up being the chair of the jury, whatever they call them now. But just to listen to the sides and then make a decision, then hand it off to the judge and say, this is what our thing is. And that's very different than going into a public meeting and say, I vote for this and I vote for that. Very different. Sir?
Richard Carver, 88 North Shore Drive. When you spoke to Mr. Clark, did he mention that he had approved tentatively the shoreline amended, the proposed shoreline amendment that the planning, that the ordinance review committee had sent to him?
He told us that he had not seen it. We shipped it to him this afternoon.
He was in the room, he spoke to us in the room, and he talked over, there was a couple of things he had problems with. Larkin forwarded them to him, and then he came back to Larkin, and he told Larkin that he had
We couldn't send it on
approved it.
without his approval. We couldn't get this far without his approval.
And the idea is that before, when our committee did this, we sent it to him so that he could review it, and then if he reviews it, then it can go on. If he didn't approve it, it couldn't get that as far as it did. Because you see, the state controls the shoreline zoning, I mean, yeah.
I understand that, and I understand that they don't approve it until after the town is.
No, they give tentative approval,
Right.
and if the town votes and passes it, then it's approved. So, I mean, what we done, and we put it in, and so I don't understand why now he said he'd never seen it.
Well, did he say that he had seen it?
He hadn't seen this proposed draft.
Okay,
It's the same one we gave it.
okay. What may have happened, Richard, is that he tentatively said 95% of it's fine, and if you want to do the other 5%, it's your decision as a town. And you do have that right. We can make things more restrictive. One of the things he said that was fascinating to me was that Rangeley Lake has 1,000-foot shorefront properties, a shoreline zone, because their lake is so valuable to them in their town. It's not 250 feet, it's 1,000 feet. And so we can do any of those. And he probably said, you can do these things, but they're not something that we think makes good sense. And this comment in here about notwithstanding such and such, which was in the previous ordinance, he said that doesn't make any sense at all. It says it backwards. And I'm surprised that if he said to you guys, it's fine where it is, and then tells us that it's wrong, I don't know how to defend that.
Well, we couldn't have, supposedly, we couldn't have come on and continued our process without him giving us tentative approval.
Mhm.
And that's why it's going as far as it did. And I've got an email that says that we did a good job
Mhm.
from him.
Well, he told us, and I think it's in this letter, that this is, by and large is good, and it's a great step forward between the ordinance and the maps. So that combination is great. Where's that page? You guys are taking all my stuff here.
You got notes on that.
Yeah,
How can he say that if he's never seen it? He said he didn't see it, but yes, he said it was good?
listen carefully. I sent it to him. We sent it to him today at noontime, and at 2:30, he had it reviewed and sent back to us, because I told him that I needed to have the information tonight. I can't remember.
What page? So that, was it verbal?
I hope this review gives you enough to discuss tonight's meeting. I can bring my phone with me tonight, da-da-da-da-da. The map and ordinance looks really good overall. Just a few items to clean up to make them consistent. That's what he wrote today.
And what happened was, when we had him here, and it was at a Zoom meeting in this room.
Mhm.
And there was a couple of things that he didn't like at that meeting, that's what he said. And he spoke, we reviewed them and sent them in, and I can send an email to him with the corrections. And then he sent an email back stating that it looks good and we did a good job. And so there, he accepted the corrections that we made.
That's a copy email right there.
Yep. But I don't dispute it at all. He
So
may have-
this isn't the first time you've seen it. No, I mean, it's been before.
Okay.
And I think there is a question there that was brought up. I think that the towns have the ability to be more restrictive.
That's correct.
And the way your wording was, I don't think it's said it that way, but you meant that. But when you said it, it didn't sound like that, but the towns do have the ability to be more restrictive.
Absolutely.
And the two state parks, that was done in 91. So that's been on the books for quite a while.
Just out of curiosity, in our ordinance, the zoning ordinance, it has a zone in there listed out, a district, if you will, that's called recreational. And the lighthouse is in there and the beach is in there. Why was that not brought into the shoreland zone as another zone? And we would have a recreational zone.
I believe that was in the zoning ordinance, right?
That's correct.
But there's a lot of things like that you can say we missed them or they just never addressed. Cooper's Beach, Crockett's Beach down here is a town beach, it's commercial. Why isn't that recreation? I mean, you can go on a number of things that could be corrected and they probably should be, but that's the way it was and we reviewed it and we probably should have taken out a commercial. Because it's town owned, same way Trails End is commercial. At one time, there was the fisheries was done there, that's why it was commercial. But now they probably should be in a recreational zone. So there's a lot of things that can be addressed that we just didn't address and perhaps that's something that you guys could review, but I believe that there is precedents where the town can be more restrictive, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Thank you very much for your time. Yes, ma'am.
Very quick. The chat on 15 Game Point Road. When we started the shoreline zoning ordinance, our instructions were to bring it up to state code. That was it. There wasn't any, well, you should change this, or you should, what do you think about that? It had nothing whatsoever. What were our instructions? To bring it up to state? Yes, where applicable. Was there anything that was?
Go ahead, talk
Yeah.
about it, and I'll go on. I mean, it needed to be updated per the state.
Right.
Bringing it up to state code, I don't know if that was the sole mandate of the committee.
Did we have anything else? That's the only one that I knew about.
Well, you probably have an unwritten code, and that is that you need to try and match the ordinances up so that they all fit together. That's part of it, and that's not necessarily bringing it up to code. You have an obligation to try and make it clear and concise and simple so that planning boards that get paid wicked big money can handle
I
it.
think it's a great idea.
Yes.
I think we should. And in fact, I think as we've gone through, we've made different notations. I don't think we're anywhere close to knowing all of the ones. If you come across more, that would be absolutely, I think it has to come from the select board to mandate us to do something. Nobody said anything at all about that, other than we sat there with the state copy, their current shoreline zone, and went through page by page over 2 years to get page by page, taking out things like big ponds and streams and rivers.
But you didn't, you left them in.
Well, we left the wording that said that there were none, because it had that stated it in the state, and we wanted to make it clear that Owl's Head did not have any of those. That's why it was done that way.
So why did you leave in parts that are in resource protection that are not resource protection?
We didn't. I can read it to you. The following years that areas are designated, this is the current one. Our resource protection districts in the shoreline zone is defined and also extend beyond shoreline zone is delineated in the Owl's Head zoning map. And one of them is Lighthouse Park, and one of them is Birch Point Park. It was the map that didn't match what the ordinance said.
But
we didn't have any, what you're saying is that you've decided that they shouldn't be in there, and so you want them changed. That's what you're saying, yes?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
If they shouldn't be in there, they shouldn't be in there.
Why shouldn't they be in there?
Because there's
State.
there's another ordinance that we function under called the zoning ordinance, which says that they should be in recreational. And the recreational description is very different than resource protection. So you've got a property that we found out today we don't even own, we don't have any control over, that we put in resource protection so that they couldn't put in a parking lot or a gatekeeper or a pathway for kids to go out and look around in the bushes and stuff. And that's in resource protection. Under recreation, all of that would be included, and you could probably get swing sets.
I think it's a great idea.
Yes, but it's in one ordinance and it's not in the other.
I understand. I think bringing them into alignment is a great idea.
Okay, what happens when that comes before the planning board? What do? We are obligated by law to take the most restrictive.
I totally agree with you. I think that you need to bring it up to the select board and ask them if they want to appoint somebody to, and that's what it needs to be done. The select board needs to have a committee that aligns the ordinances. Isn't that how it gets done?
Yes, and I asked for that today.
It's a great idea. I totally agree that there's conflicts, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Sir?
Mark opposed. The recreational zone that you're talking about while listed in the regular ordinance, is not listed in the use table. So the planning board has no guidance on what is actually allowed in the record. Stuff is designated recreational, but it doesn't say that you can actually approve a swing set. It says nothing on what you can and cannot do. Therefore, it's sort of a non-starter. The other bit about resource protection in those zones, just for clarification, is they're also designated resource protection in the regular zoning ordinance. And being, those facilities being public use, the planning board actually has a fair amount of leeway to do a fair amount of things because they are public use. Now, you can't set up a residence in that area, but you could put up new bathrooms, you could put in new parking. It would have to go in front of the planning board, but it is still in both current ordinances, both shoreline and regular zoning. You know, is resource protection the best option? It's the current option. And it lets you do most everything you guys have talked about actually wanting to do in those zones if the state would come forward. Does the state have to listen to us? That's a different issue.
Thank you.
I have a question. In shoreland, in the shoreland zoning, the 250 feet,
Correct.
we can actually have commercial within it.
Sure.
Okay, because I guess I live on Ash Point, and I guess I just heard that Trails End is commercial.
Just said so.
Yeah,
It's a commercial zone, it's a commercial lot.
Yes.
Yes.
so if we're residents, I sure didn't pay attention, that live right there, how do we get that changed?
You would petition,
Thank you.
you would petition the select board to, at a town meeting, have that law changed. It would have to go through a public hearing. There is a gentleman, I believe, that's over by the airport that wants to have his lot changed to commercial. There has been numerous occasions when our Stanley's lot, for example, has been changed to commercial. It probably should have been commercial originally. There, you know, so it is, but it has to go through permission through the select board or public. I believe you could have a petition, and if you had enough people sign it, it would go to public town meeting. You still need a public meeting, and then it would go to public vote at a town meeting.
And that's commercial the other way around too, not
Yeah,
just-
but you'd also, whoever owns that property, if it was privately owned, having it taken out of commercial would trigger some legal issues, I would guess, with the town. I mean, with the town and that owner, there would be agreements. If you took somebody's personal property, Trails End, I don't know who actually owns Trails End, is it the town?
Town.
All right, so that's a different issue, but it
Oh,
would,
Trails End, is that,
it's a
what
lot
about
at the
the
end.
private home on Trails End?
No.
No, so this is the water,
It's at the end of the road on Trails End. It's very, it's
yeah,
a little parking spot.
okay. Oh,
Excuse me,
little parking
excuse me,
spot,
yeah.
okay.
As you go down the hill,
Uh-huh,
the road stops, the
Right.
town owns 100 foot
Yes.
shorefront,
right,
and that's what's called Trails End.
okay.
Public
So there's a
access.
house called Trails End, okay,
Well, because it's at Trails End.
yes.
It's literally that little piece of orange at the
Oh,
bottom.
okay. So that's commercial zone.
Yeah.
But the town,
Yes, the town.
so it's unlikely.
And that's
something
public
like that.
access for the public to use, to put a kayak or canoe.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So it's unlikely it's gonna be commercial. Okay.
Yeah, but I like to say before, at one time, there was a fishery operation.
Yep, I know that. Wow.
Don't dare ask. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? You're just warming yourself up for the next public hearing.
About this or just?
We could start at 4:00 and go till 8:30. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Claire Philbrook, 37 Oak Run. My husband and I own a couple pieces of property down at, if you want to take a look at that, down off of Maker's Cove Road. And we've been running a glamping site for 5 years now. Just like an Airbnb, but with a tent, like a cheap way of renting stuff. But we have, we're a local family, lived here for many years. My husband's mom is Carolyn Philbrook, and, you know, all of them. But we have 19 nieces and nephews who are getting older, and one of them's almost 20, and they're getting to the age where they're gonna wanna get married, I think, pretty soon. There's a couple of them talking about plans. And we were talking about, we'd love to put a tent up in our field for that, but where there's so many of them, does it make more sense to just build a small post and beam barn? So my question is to you, what do you need from me in order for that to be okay? That makes sense?
Go ahead. Can I help her out?
Please. You're helping me too.
I've never done this. You guys are doing great. You're doing great.
Stay up here.
Okay.
So not an event center,
No.
not a public event center, but more of a setting for family. And, it would be your approval change. She's not looking for approval tonight.
Right.
But
No, just bring it up.
put your feelers out there, or if they come to me, they wanna put up this barn, they're gonna wanna put a bathroom in it, but it will be used,
And a tractor.
yeah.
That's important.
We have a tractor down there and, you know, lawnmower side by side. We need a space anyways.
At what point would you define it as an event center versus just a barn that could be used for?
This is a one-time wedding
Well,
or?
we have 19 nieces, nephews, et cetera, who live in Owl's Head. Like, I can't see them. And you know, the only event center in Owl's Head is the Woodman's, which is $18,000 for a wedding. Like, none of them are going to afford that. So,
Are they gonna pay to use it?
no, not our family.
It's not,
It's a family event.
yeah, it's
You
it's
ought to
an
be able
accessory
to-
structure.
Yes, get together and do that.
But if they have a band, if they have,
Right, we want to make sure we do it the right way so that,
this is just a feelers, conversation to the planning board.
Please allow us to look through again. We can't vote on it as an emotional issue, but we can look at it legally and see what there is. But it sounds to me like if it's a private property and it's a family and there's no money involved in it and it's not a commercial operation, it's probably an auxiliary building and.
It'll be an accessory structure on their private land.
Right, and if they have a party in it, who's to say? I mean, gets back to, you know, the rights of law that allow us to own our own property and do what we want to on it.
It's just, it's close, just close enough to
Yeah.
the Woodmans, say, for example, or just your garage at your house, you have your family over and have a barbecue, and, right, have a bunch of people over. So we just wanted to put it out there, something they want to do this year.
or in the next year or two, we don't have a builder yet. We just want to ask. You know, like if we need to install, you know, sprinklers, like that's crazy, but do we need to do that? You know what I mean? I just want to make sure none of our planning goes to waste.
So you're looking at a one-time family event, not future public use.
Well, we have 19.
Might be a bunch of family weddings.
19 of them, at least.
Send them off to another place.
No, they love Owl's Head. We all love Owl's Head.
Yes, it is.
We're not speaking, as providing you with the answers at this moment. We're just having a conversation. But I'll work with Matt on it over time, and the planning board will too. Is that a planning board issue or a CEO issue?
We weren't sure.
It's all, there's a fine line. I would like for you to review it.
Yeah, okay. We will.
5 of you, 6 of you, collaborate, let's talk about it. If it's just an accessory structure for them and they're gonna have some family weddings, that's all me. If you guys are gonna consider it something else, it's probably gonna shift into your hands. Okay?
Yeah, I think we would need a footprint.
36 by 48.
We'll get an application
Well,
and
where
get
does
it
it
to
go on the
you.
plan?
Yeah, we'll get all, that, she's
Oh,
got
that's
that
what
for you, yeah.
Is there a house there too now?
We have a cabin.
Thank you.
Just to prove that.
No, I just want to.
on my house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else to come before the board? I would entertain a motion.
To adjourn.
To adjourn? To adjourn. Last time I adjourned and I was told I was wrong, I wasn't supposed to do that.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
The motion has been made and seconded that we adjourn with nothing else. Thank you all very much for your patience. And I'm gonna go home and rub some sore wounds.
So we have to vote?
Yes, let's vote. All in favor of adjourning? Yep, adjourning. It's unanimous. Have a good evening.
Okay, I'm gonna work with it on.
Glenn, I wanted to show you where what I'm reading, which makes me believe that we need a permit. So I'm not looking at shoreline zoning, I'm looking at regular zoning. Okay. And there's a section called reconstruction. And so you start reading this, and it says, okay, you have any non-conforming structure can be, rebuilt, etc. So that's why I think you need a permit. You do need something. So how do you get one?
The same way that you always get a permit?
I don't know if, here's what I think the land use table says all notes is really confusing here because that makes me believe that not issued for anything, not even a demolition permit.
I don't think that that's exactly where I don't think that that's a problem.
Okay, then you show me, because I showed you why I think what I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You show me where, so I'm wrong. I'm not I think this is very gray.
Yeah, I think it's always very great.
Okay, here it is.
So, at the very end, we above our, then it goes into land, list of land uses is not meant to be all inclusive.
So you were like, yeah, I don't like this really hard. That tank that way.
And for any other uses that they haven't like that, such as.
Absolutely.
There's no, there's nothing in.
The only time you have to come to you're like, I don't want to go over there and go back to your site evaluator. You have to come back out.
Because it's no for airports that they can't do anything about it.
No.
The exception
They can fix
to
what you want.
the whole reason
And you gotta do anyway, it doesn't
for
matter.
a non-conforming use
Right.
is.
It's no gravity. It's a little hard.
So, even though that's any is allowed to.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Structures, the regulated existence,
Yes.
repaired, maintained.
Right, I read all of that.
Yes. Yeah, 'cause
So then I also read that reconstruction
Structurally.
requires